What up?
What up, dog?
What's up, dog?
What's up, dog? How are you today, Nick?
Bill. I'm doing great.
Good,
Wonderful. Thank you.
good. Are you enjoying your nice? I heard you played golf this weekend.
I did. I played on
Yeah,
Friday.
yeah.
Good Friday tournament, and the first swing, I just blasted a drive down the middle, and when I unrecoiled, I was just like, that hurt.
Everything hurt. Everything hurt. I bet. I bet. At
But
least you had some good weather.
great weather. Played well. Got out.
Good.
Got some sun. Great day.
Yep.
You can call it a good Friday.
It was a very good Friday.
Mm-hmm.
We had a
How
lot
was
going
your
on.
weekend?
It was good. It was quiet. Didn't do
You bo-
much.
Did you bowl any tournaments?
I did not. I did
No
not bowl any
tournaments.
tournaments. I am looking so forward to bowling league tonight. Um, because it's
I've
after
heard you've been
Lent.
bowling bad. I've heard you've been bowling
I
bad
have.
lately.
I have. That's because it was Lent and I gave up strikes for Lent.
Yeah.
So now it's after Easter. I can start striking again. My teammates are going to love that, by the way.
There's going to be a reckoning.
It's a reckoning.
Yeah.
That's
I feel
it.
bad for whoever has to bowl you.
Me too. I'm glad I'm not bowling me.
Not because you're going to strike a lot, but because you probably bowl slow.
No, I really don't. As a matter of fact, I'm the kind of guy that keeps the pace up. I'm waiting for the guy when he comes off the approach. I'm that kind of guy.
Dustin Moore is so excited for the show. He is chiming in the chat right now like crazy. He's
Is he
excited to be
not?
back. He's finally able to watch again. I think he actually had to work or something.
I'm a little disappointed in Dustin. So
Why is that?
well, my son Joe, it's his birthday this weekend. He's 30.
Oh, nice.
And I rented a house. So Dustin's dad, Wyatt, and I and Joe were going down and go fishing for the weekend. I invited Dustin, and he can't make it. So, it's too bad because the beauty of fishing with Dustin is this. He catches all the junk fish.
Nice.
Everybody
Everybody has their role.
Yeah, that's his role. So that we don't have to worry about catching them. He catches them all. So it's perfect. I don't have to worry about catching a junk fish and taking off the bait and rebaiting the hook and everything. Just Dustin catches them all, and we catch the real game fish. So
It's wonderful.
yeah,
He's the hardhead king.
he is the hardheads, and the gaff tops.
Nice.
We get some great names for fish down here.
We have a great show today, Phil.
We really do. I'm excited about it.
I'm not just saying that
You're not?
just to say it, just to keep people on, but we actually have a lot of great information we're going to share with
No, we
everyone
do.
today.
We do. And Donna Moy told me that he gave me some suggestions, and one of them was a topography. But we'll talk about that today. Topography at the stadium,
Mm-hmm.
which is really cool. You'll see how each lane, how it plays, what it looks like without the oil pattern on it. This is what the surface of the lane is telling you is going to happen without
Or
any
help happen.
help
Or
happen.
hinder, possibly.
Could hinder too. That's true.
Mhm.
And then we're going to talk about some lightweight cores, why we have cores that are not the same shapes all the way down to 12 pounds. And the World Series has started, which
That's
is pretty
true.
cool.
Cheetah
I watched it
Championships.
yesterday. Yeah, I watched it yesterday a little bit. It was pretty
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
A lot of
So
movers
that's
and
it,
shakers there.
Mhm.
All right. Now we
It
got
is,
a
and
question in the chat from Ray Brunsneck. What's
Already.
the fastest ball speed you've ever thrown on the lane?
Oh,
I think the fastest I've ever thrown a spare shot was probably 26, 27. That's about it.
yeah, I get up to that. Two and a half shots.
Two
My speed.
shots. Yeah.
2 shots and a half, actually.
Right.
So, wow,
All right.
27. So let's dive in, huh?
Let's
What do you
dive
think?
in. Let's get the
We got some good pictures to talk to you guys about. So this is a PDF that USBC puts out at the stadium, and this is lane 17 and 18,
Yep. So we
which
started
would be
at
the
bottom.
first pair, right? That's the first pair.
Yeah, they go 17 to 78 this year, so they're not using
Yeah.
the end
One-
pairs. They're not using the low end really. That
1 through
much.
16 is the Bowler's Journal tournament.
Is it okay?
Yeah, that's why. And it's simple. What you look at it, they have a little legend in the middle, tells you what's going what. If it's navy blue, okay, it is going towards the center for the lefty and towards the gutter for the righty.
It's just going to the right.
Going to the right. That's true. Let's put it that way. It's going to the right.
Yeah, slope.
Dark blue is a slope. It's a slope. Yeah, it's not anything more than just a slope. Regular blue color is a slope of 2 to 4, and the light blue is a slope of 0.5 to 2, and then green is level.
Green is as level as it gets.
Yeah, yellow goes to the left.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 0.5 to 2. If it's light red, it's 2 to 4, and if it's dark red, it's 4 plus.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at a lane, you want to see mostly
Mostly
green.
green.
Yeah, and yellow's not bad for the righties because it's going towards the pocket.
Sure.
Yellow for the lefties is going away from the pocket, and the blue is what's going towards the pocket if you're left-handed. So if you look at this lane, it's got some slope to it towards, but not away. Years ago they always complained that the stadium was sloped to the right
For lefties. Because
Well-
lefties had a lot of success there, especially in the 90s.
and for the righties too was sloped to the right. So they're both basically going uphill.
Right.
So then they went back and redid all the lanes and leveled them as best they could. And that lane's not too bad. You look at some of the spots you'd have to maybe avoid where the red is. But that's gonna be more hook.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if we start going through the slides a little bit, going lane by
Right.
lane, just to see,
Right.
on this lane we see a big red indentation on the left-hand lane on lane 19.
Yep.
So if a righty is playing up closer to the gutter,
Yeah.
right at the 40-foot mark, you got kind of a little bit of zone there from outside 3 that kind
gonna
of
get
gives you a
back.
little bit of a bumper. Lefty's got it too on that same side, by the way.
Yeah, we do. Right, exactly. So it's in the same spot on that side. And that one lane is that way. What's interesting though is when you put a pattern on top of it, it may not allow you to get out to any of that zone, depending on the pattern, right? If it's a longer pattern, you're not going to be going up the gutter. You're going to be inside. And if it's a
Typically-
shorter pattern, singles and doubles, you might be going up the gutter.
Right.
If it's
Yeah,
a
so
short,
there's-
depends on the
Yeah.
pattern.
So, as you go lane by lane, and you don't know your lane assignments, I don't believe, until you actually get to there, right? Because they don't
I don't know
assign
how
them.
that works. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I'm not sure you get to know, or if you have that information ahead of time. But as soon as you get to your stadium and you're ready to bowl, you can look up this information
Right.
on the bowl.com.
bowl.com, right?
Yeah,
bowl.com.
on the Open Championship page, they have
Yeah.
this listed for topography report, and they listed last year as well for South Point, which we'll touch on because there was a pair you bowled on that
We'll
was
talk about that later. That was pretty interesting. And how they can have a pair like that in play is amazing. But
right.
if
And
you
did
look
you
at
know,
this,
did you
I'm sorry, I didn't know that till
Did-
after the fact.
you looked at it after the fact, so you weren't even like worried about topography, but I bet you are now, and that's why we're talking about it.
Well, absolutely. My buddy Les Sherwin, who worked for South Point, said as we were walking out, this is the worst pair in all of the building.
Hmm.
And he's talking
And we'll-
about the regular center and the stadium. And I said, well, perfect. I needed that information $800 earlier.
Hmm.
So for brackets and whatnot. But anyway,
Yeah, so going through, I'm scrolling through. We're at 25 and 26 now. We're not seeing a
Yeah.
whole lot of slope one way or another. It's when you
No.
see like the dark blues and when you see the dark
yeah, but
reds.
if you notice, they're pretty even on both sides. The blue is the same as the yellow for the blue
Yeah,
for a
that's-
lefty is the same as the yellow for a righty.
So okay, in your experience, what can cause topography shifts or changes? What are the main contributing factors to topography?
Well, I don't think it's a change. It's the lane being laid down.
Hmm. So you
They
think
can't
it's
get them
all
perfect.
install?
It's install,
Hmm.
and that's all it really is. When they screw down the lane bed, how they screwed it down, it could be a little tighter on one side than the other, and therefore you have a little raise on one side.
Depressions.
Exactly, depressions and stuff like that.
Yeah, because it's screwed into a wood frame.
Exactly.
And the wood can change over time with moisture or anything,
Absolutely.
temperature.
Absolutely.
So this can change. Lane play. Constant impact.
Right.
If you look on lane 25 here, in like a normal, typical maybe impact area, the dark red.
Yep.
That could be a general impact area of
It's a lay down. Right.
a lay down point, right? The lay down point's a little bit
Absolutely.
closer on the right lane, but
Absolutely. Yeah, more
That could be
righties. And that's around second arrow, isn't it?
right. Yep.
Yeah.
That's
On
true.
that pair.
So
So
going
it
through,
depends. Mhm.
Reno overall looked pretty good. It wasn't like crazy, but it's something that you want to take into account. Like when you get there and you know what pair you're starting on or you're
Right.
going to be bowling on, scout it
Exactly.
out. If you know ahead of time, go watch people bowl on that pair prior. If
Yeah.
you have the
Yeah.
time to go watch them bowl and see if you can see any kind of, obviously you don't know the pattern they're bowling on, but um, see if there's any nuances. Anything you're seeing, like the ball hangs on the right lane, or if you get it out towards the gutter, it hooks early. That's kind of indicating
Yeah.
factors that, like on this lane, if you see on lane 32, the ball could hook, pretty strong once you get out to the gutter. So if you like to play out, if it's a shorter pattern,
Right.
you might be able to have a little more success here, banking it off closer to the gutter to start.
Yeah. And just remember that the one lane, the right lane is going to have a little more bounce than the left lane
Sure. Yeah. The
in that
difference
one
between the
spot.
two.
Yeah. And that's at how far is that down? 40 feet, 35 feet, 40 feet.
Yeah. Between 30 and 40 feet looks like on there.
Yeah. So if you're, if it's a shorter pattern, they're forcing you out a little bit, at least you got some bounce coming up.
Right. And I actually got early report from Billy
Yep.
Orlikowski, just came back
Yep.
from Nationals, and he said that the team was great. The pattern was very playable. Doubles and singles was some of the hardest he's seen, the shortest and the flattest that he's seen.
Right. Right.
He tried every single trick. He just could never really get into the zone.
Yeah.
So that's something to take into account. It's a short pattern, but not super short. He feels it's around 38 feet.
Yep.
That's why some guys are able to move in and hook it when it's a shorter pattern. The guys that can really launch it, he said the only thing he really didn't try was like, when he got really steep with it, he didn't really give it like a lot more speed, and he didn't get it any loft.
Oh,
Like
he didn't.
never
He didn't
really
try lofting it.
never
Okay.
tried launched it. Never really tried launching it down the lane.
Excuse me. Remember when Bobby told us last week, Where's Waldo, when he did the Where's Waldo act, he told us that team had a little bit of hold and that singles and doubles pattern he felt was shorter as well. But they wouldn't let you play out.
Right, because I
So,
think it's still pretty flat.
yeah. Well,
You
they
know,
might have inverted it a little bit so you couldn't play out, put a little more outside.
It's possible. So
force
even though
you
it's a
into
shorter
the track.
pattern, they want to get people off of the gutter,
Correct.
where
Correct.
the stadium in the history has always typically wanted to play.
Right.
It didn't matter. Like we bowled regionals there all the time, and it didn't matter what pattern they put out there for a while.
Yeah.
Whether it was the shark pattern or the cheetah pattern,
Mhm.
there was always enough friction right on the gutter to be able to play it.
Yeah. And that's just memory,
Mhm.
But I mean, now if you look at the way the pattern, the way the lanes are, the topography, they're all sloping towards the center a little. I mean, every pair we looked at had everything going from left to right on the left side and right to left on the left side, or flat.
Yeah.
I mean, relatively flat. When you look at a yellow, it's only
Yeah.
really a 0.5 to 2 slope, so that's almost
Right.
none.
So on this pair of lanes in particular, with that big patch of yellow kind of in the middle of the lane,
Yeah, that's gonna.
you may have issues if you start moving in, getting that ball to hold a little more. That ball's going to want to hook a little bit more on the left-hand lane on 53 than it would on 54.
Correct.
So
Yeah, and that's what you have to look at. I mean, when you get there, you can always bring this up. It's on bowl.com. At least look at what you're in for. And then, like that's pretty nice pair right there. It's not bad.
That looks pretty even. Yep, we're getting to 61, 62,
right,
63, 64.
Yeah, I think as further you get away from the center of the building, you're going to get a little more.
Oh, here we go. Here's
there's another beautiful. There you go.
Here's another hot spot here for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So definitely more bank on these panels here on the left-hand lane. Right lane gets the favor. The left-hand lane, actually, part of it points a little bit left, looks like, out there. Might have a little few hang spots out there with the yellow on the left.
On the left lane.
On the right lane.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, but both, if you look the left lane, both sides can bank it off the gutter.
Sure.
It looks like, or at least it wants to. Now, once they put oil on top of it, they could take that away.
They could, but they should be putting the same pattern on every
No, I'm
lane.
just saying that, yeah, exactly. But I'm just using as an
Oh, wow.
example. Whatever that pattern is, they could oil it so
Yeah.
that won't play.
Yeah, so like
You know?
lane 69 could be hooking a little bit early for right-handers playing out.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot to take into account.
Yeah.
You know, obviously this isn't the end all be all because, you know,
Well,
topography is a contributing factor to ball reaction. It's not if you
yeah,
get on
but
this pair.
it's like when you play golf and you play in the mountains or out west. Most greens slope towards the mountains or away from the mountains, rather. But you look
Right.
at it, the green looks level. When you walk up to it, oh, it looks level. Then you
Yeah,
hit your
or-
putt and you miss it by 17 feet to the right.
Yeah, or all putts go towards the creek, or all putts go
Yeah,
towards the
exactly.
pond.
It's the same scenario.
Mhm.
All
All right, so here.
Oh, look at that. That's what.
All right, let's talk about this now. This is South Point. This topography
Oh, my
report was
God.
done in I believe it said 2019. So
Yeah.
let's talk
So that
about
was
your
on
experience.
the singles and doubles, which is the shorter pattern.
Mhm.
And I spoke to Nick before I went out. And Nick said, "Man, I just threw urethane up the gutter." Right, Nick?
Yeah, I threw urethane right up the gutter, but I wasn't on this pair.
You weren't on that pair. And if you notice where my break point was, it was 4+ going left.
Yeah.
And it was a short pattern, so you couldn't move in because it wanted to hook when it was in. If you look at it, it was blue going towards the pocket. So I had
Yes.
early hook and I had hang. Now, the righties on that pair struggled as well because if you look at the the blue,
That left lane's a nightmare. Yeah.
Left lane was nice.
It's like, here, come into the gutter. It's great. You like it
yeah,
in there.
exactly.
Hang out here for a little bit.
Right. And if they got it up the gutter too early, it would hook. Then it would go down the lane and hang. So, and my buddies bowled on the pair next to us and crushed them.
Mhm.
Dustin shot a monster score. I forget what it was. And his dad, Wyatt, shot a big score. And so did my buddy Joey, finished second or third in the classified, with 7 and change. And Dustin had like 780, and he was throwing urethane out.
Yeah. It
on
played.
the pair next to us.
Right.
But not this pair. So what amazes me is, and it's not a personal thing. What do I care? I bowled bad before. You go there, you got 9 games. You bowled 3 games for team, and my 6-game set was on this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it sort of took the fun out of the day. But I enjoyed watching my buddies next to me bowling great. But they noticed it's pairs like that.
Yeah, like
they know it. How'd you not fix it?
I mean, what is the specs where it's like, oh, that's out of tolerance?
And I don't know what the impact is because I remember when Kegel built their place, I think they put hydraulics in there where they could raise and lower the lane side to side. And I think they said like a 1 degree change made a lane go overall, made the lane go from super playable to impossible.
Yeah, I remember that video. I think it was PDW, right? Or
Yeah,
was it Norm? It was PDW. Where he threw one shot, he struck, and then they changed they didn't tell him what they changed.
Nope, that's right.
They just changed the topography to give him like a 1 or 2 degree lean to the right.
Yep.
Which you probably can't even see with your eye.
Oh, you can't. It's impossible. No, you can't tell.
And then he took like 3 off the right.
Exactly.
Throwing the same shot.
When you start looking at a pair like this that exists and I don't know if the rest of them, I haven't looked at the rest of South Point. Believe me, I'll look next time I go.
Yeah, sure.
But how does a pair like that still be in play? How could you not go in there and fix it?
They knew they wanted to put you on that pair.
Yeah, they did, right?
They
could shim that pair and fix it.
They put all the squeaky wheels on that pair.
Yeah, I didn't say a word. Just licked my wounds and went home. Went and bet a baseball game or something. But I mean, when you look at it and you say, how the hell did I bowl that bad? Well, now I know. They put an oil pattern down that forced you out. And then the lane said, not so quick.
Yeah.
For you, this is going to be a bad day. Yeah.
You better get that ball started before it hits that spot.
Yeah, and you can't because that's 25 feet.
I can't really read that one there. It looks like between 30 and 35 25, 30.
Yeah, so I had to get it started at 25 feet.
Yeah.
And I tried my urethane ball, and it didn't work because it would start up too quick, and I'd slightly move in and launch it a little bit, and it would hang. So that was not a good day. We have any questions about this?
We do. Actually, one from your guy, Don, who suggested the topic.
Yeah.
Do the various brands of synthetic panels, HPL and ProLane, impact topography?
So I don't know. No, I don't. I'm going to say no, and I'll tell you a funny story along those lines. So Astro Bowl, where I bowled Tuesday night, I've been bowling there forever. They put synthetics in a couple of years ago, and they were used. You know, synthetics. They bought them somewhere else. They were in great shape, but they were used. So they put them up against the wall, and lane 17 of somewhere else was not next to lane 18 of somewhere else. They just panels on the wall, but they put them in, and the high end of Astro always hooks more than the low end, just the way it is. Okay. When they screwed the lanes down, these are brand new lanes, the high end still hooked more than the low end because of the lane beds. It's just the way it is. It's got nothing to do with the panel. Now, if the panel is worn, it's a different story.
Right.
And that's just the way it is from use. But when they take a panel from another bowling center, that panel that may have been a hooking panel somewhere else may not be the same at the center they're putting it in, depending on what they're screwing it down on and how they screw it in, how much pressure they use, are they all torqued the same? There's a lot to it.
Right, sure.
So the panel itself doesn't have much memory in it, if any, but the lane bed certainly does.
Well, Rob Johnson just chimed in. He says on AMF lanes, they have a different thickness than a pro lane, than a Brunswick Gamble lane.
Okay.
So that could be a contributing factor. If it's a little thinner, it could have more indentations or more suppressions once it gets screwed in.
Yep. That's true. That's true.
There's a lot of
I don't
things.
know much about that stuff. The lane surfaces, I don't know much about.
Yeah.
I do know a little bit about lane bed. And, it's funny because years ago when we bowled on wood, you had dark boards and light boards. And the dark boards were harder. And the balls didn't hook on them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching Earl bowl and, him saying that he had the left lane at Garden City Bowl. The left lane we were on had two dark boards where his lay down would have been, to the front part of the lane. And he had to play that lane different because they were harder.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to adjust that way. So you look.
When you're saying like the board was harder, was it the board wouldn't go down the whole lane or to a certain
it might
point?
be a 6-foot piece of lane.
Okay.
That one board that could have been a 12 board that was a harder wood. It was darker. So it just didn't have as much friction. And it might go through the front part of the lane. It might be a lay down. You do remember wood lanes, don't you?
I bowl on wood lanes.
Now you do. Are they all? They're not all the same color.
There's tiny variations in the color, but nothing crazy where one's dark, one's light.
Yeah. Well, go look next time. Well, you don't look at the boards because you bowl in a house of paint that's walled up off the gutter. You just throw it at the sprinkler head on 17 or lane 6 or whatever it is.
It's so walled up. You shot what?
I know why. I didn't listen to you as a ball rep.
You're right.
But anyway, but if you go look, you'll see different variations in some of the wood. And the older houses had a lot of difference from board to board in some cases. Some places replace boards, and that's I mean, you're talking about years ago where there was nothing else to put on it. They had a wooden lane.
Yeah, talk about topography.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you
the
knew the house exactly.
The heads took a beating, and I've seen some houses in the past where they filled in the fronts with epoxy and then sanded it down to make it flat. But you avoided those epoxy spots by all means.
So Garden City Bowl, when I lived on Long Island, we called it File City because the heads were so beat. They said if you drop change over the foul line, you could lose it in between the cracks of the boards. So that's how big Garden City Bowl was.
Lose your keys.
You could lose your keys.
Like a storm drain.
It was like a storm drain. So that was called File City. But and again, you did what you said is true. They put epoxy down and so on. But again, that's different than wood. So that was where you had variations. But now when they lay the lanes down, you have variations. And like you said earlier, the wood, the base um, of the lane can change. I bowled in a bowling center on Long Island called Pequot Bowl for years, and it had a creek that ran under the right side of the building. And it started. I'm telling you, got to listen. This is amazing how it affected it. It started about where the foul line was. If you walked in the front door, the right side of the building was like, I don't know what lane was over here, but whatever that lane was on the end. Let's say it was lane 16.
Yeah.
Lane 15. At the foul line is where the creek started, and it ran as a diagonal to the other side of the house. So on lane 32, it would be at the end of the pin deck. So it ran on that angle. Okay. And when the winter was there and the creek had rain and snow, it would be moister. So what would happen is you'd have a variation in ball motion from the low end of the house on that side to the high end because of where the moisture was. As the creek filled in the summertime, if the creek was lower or dry, you didn't have the same problems. Mm-hmm. So, on rainy days, you knew that they were going to have tighter back ends on the high end of that house because of the moisture. So, I mean, those are all things you had to deal with then. Maybe they're not as prevalent now.
Yeah, but we actually have Tom Johnson here. He's Amy's husband who owns Pincrest, and they said they scored a 96 out of 100 during recent USBC certification. How does that relate to topography?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think they probably grade it on everything, so like pin deck, short flat gutter height, kickbacks. Oh,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Probably the lane oil pattern, when they tape it off.
Right.
Everything that gets certified to make sure everything's the right length, the dots are in the right spot, that sort of thing. So
I think you have to call in a company to check the levelness of the lanes.
Yeah, they resurface every summer.
Yeah, and that's great.
Yeah, once they took off the plastic lane panels and exposed the wood, they did a full resurface, and the place is beautiful.
But here's the other thing: if the lane is tilted simply because of the way it was laid down, and it's resurfaced, you'll have a flat tilted lane.
Well, I don't know what kind of jig that the resurfacers have.
I don't either. I don't know if they cut it to level the lane or just level it next to the board next to it. You know what I mean?
I would imagine the machine has a leveling mechanism to it. And if they roll it, if it rolls in the gutter or whatever, and they can adjust the height of each wheel or whatever to make it flat as possible. I don't know the process of that.
I don't either.
I do know the people that do it, that do the resurfacing.
Yeah.
And if Mo was still here, you could probably answer that question too.
He could. He would tell you.
But
again,
that's how we got to start.
It's a lot different when you look at the topography, and then you have to get a little more complicated when you start looking at what pattern did they put out on top of it.
Sure.
Where did they make you play? I mean, they could force you to play a part of the lane that has bad topography.
Right.
So,
and we actually have a funny David Zachary Conover. He says, topography is the reason I'm not on Radical staff. That's it. That's the cause.
That's the reason. That's the cause.
Yep. Couldn't get that double in the 10th.
No, because of the topography.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And you know what? It's just, it's more and more prevalent now because the sensitivity to the bowling balls to friction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Topography is a tool. Like, okay, so you have this report, you have all the lanes that are laid out, and you know what the topography is going to be on your lanes when you bowl.
Right.
That's just a piece of information. You still have to get out there and throw the shots and see what your ball's actually doing, and then make your decisions based off of that. Does it support the topography report, or does it go against it?
Exactly.
If you see crazy hook, say on this lane that you bowled on lane 33 and you're left-handed, and all of a sudden you see the gutter hooking like crazy out there.
Yep.
It's probably changed. The topography report is probably out of date, or something changed with the lane itself.
Yeah. What the beauty is, USBC does that. They tell you, they give you a report to look at. So I rest assured when next year, is it next year they go back to Vegas? I think it
Probably.
is.
I think
Yeah,
they go back
I
pretty
think
much
it is.
every other year,
Yeah,
right?
and
Just
then they
about.
go to Baton Rouge in 25, I think.
Someone
So
said tilted. That's the pattern.
yeah, tilted. We should do that in our next video.
I
You want
guess
to know the pattern? Tilted. That's the
that's the
pattern. So
pattern.
when I go to Reno, obviously I'm going to look. I'll have this. I'll pull it up on my phone. But
South Point, 2024.
yeah, when I go to South Point, I'm going to go look at the report for lanes 33 and 34.
Well, if it changed, if they do another report,
That's what I mean. That's what I'm looking. Oh, they will do another report. I'm sure they do.
maybe.
Yeah, I hope. I would look at the report and see if they change that pattern. If it's the same, I'm going to go bet everybody that's on that pair.
Bet what?
Bet them that I can beat them because I'm not on that pair.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Why don't you just bet them against their own scores? I bet
I
you
can do that. I bet you don't shoot 170.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
What if
So
they're throwing? What if they're throwing a radical ball though?
Then I'll help them. I'll tell them
185.
185. That's exactly right. So
The best handicapper in the game here, people.
oh, tell them, Nick. You can tell everybody.
What? Tell them what?
About the basketball. Go ahead. You can tell them. Tell them.
All right. We won the work basketball March Madness pool. I gave Phil a lot of grief every time he missed a pick. I'm like, how could you not? How could you not have Arizona? How could you? How did you miss this one?
Mm-hmm.
We weren't winning.
No. And then Phil said to you,
it's like he said, it's all about Miami. If we get Miami to upset Houston, which he picked, it is game over for the rest of them. And congratulations, you beat out a 25-year-old kid. He's probably watching. Hi, Tony.
You know what? It's too bad for him. Well, he learned a lesson. See, he learned a lesson from this.
What did he learn?
He learned not to gamble. He got second. He got second. He got second.
He got help from all the capital and aftermarket guys, so it's not like he was on his own.
So we beat a whole department, and we beat actually all the departments.
Yeah, I mean, why are you gonna bet against the guy that's juiced in? He's got all the answers. He's got these people in the stands,
that's
shining lasers at the players when their free throw shots are going.
So I ended up, as bad as the brackets were, I don't have it here, but it was fun. I had one bracket with ESPN that was in the 97.5 percentile. Think about how bad the games were, and I was still that high. But again, I was number 275,000.
It means there's a lot of degenerates out there that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those people know more than I. Yeah. Or you pick the color of the team. I like the green team. So anyway, we have any more questions about topography?
Not right now. But if you guys do have questions, we'll go back and answer them in the chat, or we'll bring them up on the show if we want to a little later if we have some time. But I think we'll let's talk about the World Series a little bit. So
I watched it yesterday on and off throughout the day, which is pretty exciting. It was good to watch. I followed our guys, Nathan from Canada and John Fury and Ronnie Russell. Joey Pants, who had tuned in earlier, decided he didn't want to strike enough. I guess he didn't match up. Or something, but anyhow, he didn't make it. I was unfortunate because I always love watching Joey bowl. But it came down to a roll off, which is pretty cool last night.
20 games and they tie,
and they both shot big last games. They both tripled in the 10th. The last game tied. It was AJ Johnson and I'm gonna kill this kid's name. Blomgren. I'm going to call him Steve. I don't know what his first name is, but Steve. He's from Finland, and he goes solid 9, 8-bagger, and then he leaves a 6-8 high flush, and then he has a chance to shut out AJ, and he goes ring 7 on the left lane. AJ gets up in the 10 and packs all 3 to win. So then you have BJ Moore as the leader, EJ Tackett, who's on fire. And then a guy that I guess you bowled with him.
It actually came up in memories today.
Yeah, Joe Grondin.
Yeah, we bowled.
I watched him bowl down here a year or so ago at the Dirty River Doubles that Jeff Hartsfield runs.
Mm-hmm.
He's interesting to watch bowl. And then Jacob Buttriff got into fourth. We'll talk about him in a minute, and then AJ Johnson. But talk about Joe, because you bowled with him, right?
Yeah, it actually came up in memories today that we finished third in an adult junior JAT tournament. We both grew up bowling the same event. Obviously, Joe's a lot younger than I am, but I came out to visit family, and I brought bowling equipment. And I got with the tournament director, Dave Yamo, and asked if there was any juniors that were still looking for adult partners. I would be able to fill in if, and this is when the jackpot came out. That's how long ago it was. I remember I only took 2 bowling balls out there. I took pin down jackpot and pin up jackpot. That's all I took.
Yeah, that's when you were a good bowler. Now you didn't rely as much on your equipment. You had talent. Now you have to drill 1,000 balls.
I'm a fantastic bowler now. I've been getting so much practice doing these ball review videos on my YouTube page.
You must be. That's right.
My YouTube page is blowing up. Getting all the reviews up there. But yeah, I'm sharp. You should be thanking me because I'm going to be bowling so well for whoever's team I'm stuck with.
It's not my team. I don't care.
Exactly.
You're not on my team.
Like I said, you don't feel.
Well, actually, you're part of the 10. No, you're not even part of the 10. You're in a different group. You're not even part of the 10. So anyhow, Joe whacked him this week, the whole week.
Yeah, he was leading. I think up until
third, fourth lead.
He was leading after 15, and then the cavalry came, and he was able to hang on to third.
Yeah,
but yeah, he bowled amazing all week, or not all week, but the last 2 days for Cheetah, and he'll be on the show on the 17th next Monday at 7 p.m. on FS1.
Yeah, then behind him was the striking machine, Jacob.
That had to have been one of the biggest moves I've ever seen.
Might be in PBA history, by the way.
He was 86th place after 10 games. He had a decent first block of 5, where he was like, I don't know what he was up there. He was in top 16 or so.
Right.
And then he fell off. He was minus something the next 5. Who knows what happened during that block?
Yeah.
But he was in 86th place with 10 to go.
Right.
And he jumped the field from 86th to 4th in 10 games.
He went 1288 in round 3 and 1287 in round 4. So the last 10 games he averaged 257.
Yeah. That's 10 strikes per game. On average.
In 10 games, he only didn't strike 20 times.
No, sorry, it's the PBA Tour. That's 9 strikes a game because he probably went, 5-bagger, open, 4-bagger for 250. That's the PBA 250.
PBA 250. So that show is on April 17th, 7 p.m.
Yeah, so Joe, I believe, made a show earlier this year, but it was one of the Bowl TV telecasts. It was live streaming. It wasn't actually on
that's his
TV.
Second, right? Second show for Joe.
Second show, first national TV show for Joe.
Jacob's third show this year.
Yeah, that's
so they're bowling good.
He's off to a good start.
Yeah, they're doing well.
That was an impressive run. And the show continues today with Scorpion pattern today, I believe, right?
Yeah. And Joe was struggling a little bit.
Joe's struggling, but that's okay. I mean, there's still a lot of games left to figure it out. And the big picture is getting to the top 12 for World Championship. Obviously, you want to be up there further for the big major at the end there.
Is it top 12 that they cut to for the World Series?
I do believe.
I think so.
Let me check my notes from last. Yeah, top 12 World Champion match.
You have a book with notes?
Yeah, from last week's show.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, I have a dedicated folder just for the show. How about that?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Plus, if you make a bet on I got to write it down so I don't forget.
That's right.
Even though it's, it's out there. You can't erase the internet.
Who doesn't know about that as it gets closer? So.
Yeah, so all the tournaments going on, I believe, are they in break right now or are they bowling right now? But yeah,
they got to be done by now, I think.
Yeah.
I don't want I could check the standings. I don't know if I could do that without doing anything stupid.
Yeah, don't do that. How about don't do that? we don't need you to be jumping off it.
Oops. Yeah, we had enough with that last week with Bobby.
Yeah.
I have to explain to Bobby that the difference between Wi-Fi and 5G. Even I know that.
Yeah.
So
it looks like they have 4 games in the book. Maldo's in first right now. Troop, Tack it again.
Oh, you could do it. You know how to do that.
I can do it because I know how to do it.
Yeah, I don't know how to do
Ogle's
that.
up there in 6. So it looks like they have one game to go, or if they're done already, they just haven't posted the last game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Good.
4 or 5 games posted. Yes, thank you, Chuck.
So let's see. So now
that's all Bowl TV.
we've covered our topography. We covered the World Series, and then one of the other questions we get a lot is our lightweight balls have a different shaped core than our heavyweight balls, and I get a lot of phone calls about that too. It's funny. I'll get people that saying, "Hey, I got an injury, or I'm getting old, and I want to drop down from 14 to 13 pounds." And I threw, I want to throw the outer limits, for instance. But what core is in that? And I say, well, we use a generic core. It's a generic asymmetrical core, so that we can give you some differential after drilling, and raise your intermediate diff a little bit. Well, why can't you do that with the regular shaped core? And you try to explain to them that the density, the specific gravity of the material you use in a regular shaped core, you can't use that in a lightweight ball because it would weigh too much. Obviously, if you poured a ball with just urethane, it'd be 12.5 pounds, about. In other words, with no core. So if you take out the middle to put a core in it, you have to really be close. On a 12-pound ball, you can only put 6 pounds in the middle of the ball. About a little less, maybe. And the problem comes in with the size of the core. You could shrink the size down, but then you still wouldn't have the differential or the same performance. So what we try to do is give you a core that has a high enough differential and high enough intermediate diff, so that it's in a lighter weight ball. You still get performance. And the cover stock is what it's all about when it comes to that.
Right. The cover stock doesn't change one bit.
No, you same cover stock.
The question I see a lot and going in like the bowling forums and such is, brand X uses the same core from 12 pounds all the way to 16 pounds. It has the same shape. But just because a lightweight core has the same shape as its heavyweight predecessor does not mean it's the same core. There's no possible way that can happen.
No, can't
and
be.
You can see that with the numbers. When you see a gigantic drop off. Now, RGs are one thing. The RGs are going to change in a lightweight ball compared to a heavyweight ball because they have to. You're using less dense material to make the ball lighter. So what happens is, you put that same shaped core into a ball with a lot less density. All of a sudden, the differentials drop down to hardly anything, nowhere close to the original. Correct. So is it really the same exact core?
Yeah, it's like making a balloon dog.
Right.
It's got the same shape as your dog.
Yeah.
But it doesn't weigh it's the same, or is it the same? So it's putting, we can use glass beads to fill that core in and make it the same shape and fit it into the ball. And when you drilled into it, it'd be like making no change at all in the differential or the shape of the core after drilling. It'd be no impact. So Nick did some research. He's got some pictures to show us about the.
I have a picture. So
I
want to show the basically I'll just put up on the screen here. So this is the ever famous Black Widow core, the gas mask core on the left, and the intermediate and the total differential numbers on the left. And on the right is our generic asymmetric core, which is a light bulb shape that has been elongated, elliptical, to give it the intermediate differential. So the main things you're looking at here are the differential numbers and the intermediate numbers. Now, you're just not going to find a 12 or 13 pound ball that really has the differential of 0.58. It's going to be, in your experience, how hard is that to do?
That's impossible to do.
Sure.
It's impossible. You can't get a 13 pound ball to have a diff like that. You can't get there. It's just won't happen.
Right. So Brunswick engineers quite a long time ago developed lightweight cores that could potentially max out the total differential and the total intermediate for those weights, giving you, the bowler, the most possible performance there is. So on a symmetrical ball, say for instance, on like a GB4, the differential on that ball is 0.48. Obviously, there's no intermediate because it's symmetrical. The generic version of that core is right around 0.40. So within a close range of the original faction. So
Yeah, and the other part you have to consider is a lightweight ball. People that throw lighter weight balls may have a little less rev rate or a little less ball speed. So giving you an 043 differential ball, it should be fine, and you'll be able to accommodate the rev rate. It'll help your rev rate a little bit because you'll end up with a lower RG ball than you would have had before. You'll have a higher differential than you would have had before. So it would sort of somewhat mimic what you were going to get out of the regular shape and regular dense core. And that's the goal that we had when we started going with a. Oh, we got the truck backing up again. I love it.
Oh, it's bringing your truck with money from all the March Madness.
Yeah, there it is. So you have to understand that it's the end result. If the and your after drilling numbers are going to be different. You have an 043 core. If you had a lighter weight core and drilled into it, you would not change the after drilling numbers that much on a same shape lightweight core. You get whatever the numbers were. If it's 025 dip, that's what you'd end up with because you didn't take any mass out. With our ball, when you drill into that core, it's a denser core, so you're going to change the intermediate diff and the total diff.
Sure. And if they took that gas mask core shape with the top flip block and all that and put that same shape into a 12 and 13 pound, the differential would be very, very low because they'd have to make that core very, very light. So you're not getting the true performance out of that ball. You'd be basically having, a decaffeinated version of that.
Sure.
So
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, rather than have less performance, we go to generic core.
And if you look at the size of that core, if you can put that core up again, if you can technologically go back.
I can do that.
Okay. You got to look at the size of that core, the mass, the area of that core.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You realize how light the material has to be to fill that core and keep the ball under 14 pounds.
Right.
So your densities are so spread out. The weight of that core is so spread out, dissipated over the size of the area. At least in the one to the right, you can put a denser material in there. Mm-hmm. So that when you drill it, your drilling is more of an impact, but it also leaves more of the mass in the core.
Right.
It's not spread out over a wider area.
So at what point, it is, when you have such a massive core and say brand X wants to keep that core shape intact and you have to use a material that's so light, say it's equivalent to even like the outer core material, as far as weight and density. Right. At what point does it's not actually a core anymore? It's just more or less filler.
That's all it is.
Right.
Right. So what we did was at Columbia years ago, we wanted to make our cores more dense and the outer core lighter. We used glass beads. 3M made a glass bead filler. We used that. It had air.
Okay.
Made it light. Now we could have made whatever shape core you wanted, as big as you wanted, with those beads in it in a 6-pound ball. But it would have had no impact. There was no weight to it, no mass. So that's why we don't do it that way. There's the right way to do it, and then there's the marketing way to do it. We don't use the marketing way.
Right. We want to give true performance.
We want to give you performance. We don't want you to buy a ball and say, "Man, my outer limits rolled terrible. It didn't do anything."
Yeah.
You drill an outer limits, you're getting HK22 cover on it, and you're getting that performance.
Sure. And Chuck Baker, his son bowls a 12-pound Black Widow and gets great motion for his rev rate and speed combo. Loves that ball.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we try to do the best we can. And then I get people that call me and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. So, I always tell people.
That's me, by the way.
Yeah, that is you. I call when that happens. I tell them, "Well, you called me. I didn't call you and tell you this. You called me. I'm giving you my answer." I don't recall me dialing your number and asking you what you thought. So, if you want to disagree, that's the way it is. And sometimes people fall into the marketing gimmicks that are out there.
They absolutely do. And I see it and I shake my head. I don't say anything on the boards, but the bottom line is if the numbers are not the same, it's not the same core.
It's not the same core. Right. And that's all it is, because then they're using filler instead of core material. So, any questions?
we're getting some questions, so we'll go ahead and open it up. We got about 10 minutes left.
Yeah, we do.
So Skylar wants to know, what's more important, layouts or surface?
You know, they go hand in hand. Surface will get you to the pocket. Layouts will help you carry.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put it that way. I think that's the way I've always looked at it. You know, if you have the right surface, you're going to hit the pocket a lot of times. But if you're not getting the pins out a certain way, maybe it's your layout. Yeah. And then you can tweak that.
If you go extreme one way or the other, you know, you're really handcuffing your performance, your total usability of the ball.
Yeah.
So if you go with like a crazy, you know, 1-inch pin layout, but then all of a sudden you say, oh, I want to put 500 grit on it.
Yeah.
What exactly are you trying to accomplish? So, you know, but at the same token, if you use like a high flaring layout, like a 4-inch pin by 20, and all of a sudden, you know, you want to put 500, well, yeah, I'm here to wreck the lane for everybody. I'm here to burn up a pattern. So
yeah, it's different.
That I get.
Yeah, but most times you have to match, and you got to match it to your style. You know, are you rev dominant, speed dominant? You know, and that's where you get the surfaces right. Yeah. You know, I have had trouble forever because I throw the ball slow, and then I'm starting to realize my problem is I was using balls that may be a little bit too shiny because they never really slowed down until the end, and they sharp motion down lane.
Yeah, because you have issues getting your feet left, right?
Yeah, I can't get left. I'm standing against the ball return most of the time.
Sure.
You know, so what I started to do is look at using a little bit of surface, and I fiddled with my double cross now. With I was trying to polish it a little bit, and I can now move a little bit left because the ball doesn't hook so hard down lane. So it's all surface, and then surface gets you to the pocket, layout gets you strikes.
All right. Wayne wants to know where the topography charts for nationals. It's on bowl.com on the Open Championship page. You can find it on there, or just Google topography USBC Open Championship.
Right.
Rob Johnson tuning in. With DV8 creating equipment with two-handers in mind, will Radical look to do something similar?
I don't know. You know, do we really need two? Do we really need another version of a two-handed? I don't know yet.
Yes, Phil, we do.
We probably do.
Yes, we do.
We do.
We need it. We need it in urethane too first, so we can really.
Oh boy! So here we go. I'm probably going to wait and see, and then we'll look at it. You know, we have a really good core designer. He's worked with Mo for a million years. I mean, you know, as long as I can remember. He was designing cores for Mo and with Mo forever. He's still doing our work. And just to tell you a little bit about what we're doing with the Outer Limits is the first ball we've done it on. He has created a program, a computer generated enhancement program that actually depicts ball motion. So that before we even
make the theory, ball, before you even get the ball in the lane.
Yeah, before we get the ball in the lane, it's got the shape, and then we can tweak it. And he's working on a couple of other balls now to go along lines with the Outer Limits. So I think if it looks like we are onto something, which I believe we are with the Troublemaker, then we will definitely have him work on some type of core design with the two-handed baller in mind. But also remember the Troublemaker is a great ball in general. I mean, it's got a really good cover stock on it, and you can use it as a three-fingered or two-fingered, you know, one-handed, two-handed bowler.
It's a traditional, strong, symmetrical ball. Really rolly, really strong. I mean, I tested it, and it's every bit as strong as anything symmetrical I've ever thrown. So I didn't get the numbers of the ball after drilling, so I don't know. Right. You know, we've only tested the numbers for after drilling with two-finger holes drilled.
Right.
But once you add that thumb hole, it really changes everything. So
sure. But again, that ball has got a little scoop technology on the top that you drill the fingers into the scoop, and you can go really, really deep. And the two-handed bowler has an advantage with it. So
right. Well, the advantage for the two-hander comes from not only drilling it into the scoop or in the top knob of the core, but increasing the differential when they drill into the big body of the core, because the body of the core is close, very close to the surface, probably the closest that's ever been done. And the size of this core is massive. It's the biggest, quite possibly the biggest core we've ever done.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot to it. So again, it's in its infancy stage. So I'm going to say right now I am eating popcorn and watching.
Mhm.
So, you know,
Got
we'll
it. We
figure
got
it
a
out.
question. Here we go. Joseph Lloyd. When bowling on a short pattern, is it better to hit your ASIM ball 2000 surface to play straighter, or is it better to hit all equipment with a different type? That's a very general question, Joseph.
Yeah, that's tough.
It really depends on the amount of volume and how much buffer there is. If it's a short pattern, but it kind of tapers a little bit, or if it's just flat. If the flatter it gets, I would say use probably a little bit more surface, even more than 2000. But it also depends on your ball speed, rev rate,
Mhm.
because I can tell you what I would do because I know my game, but I don't know your game or how you throw it or your tendencies.
What
So,
you don't want to do is polish it on the short pattern. You don't want the ball to duck hook down lane.
right. You need
Yeah,
to,
and you want the ball to come out that off the end of that pattern and be rolling.
right. You don't want to try to
Slowing down.
don't want it to be too jumpy off the spot. So you want it to burn up some friction a little bit more front to back earlier. So it hits that end of the pattern and rolls
Mhm.
off of it as opposed to goes sideways. So
Yeah,
I would say just like when you're eating a nice meal, salt it to your taste.
I would go practice on a short pattern and play with the surface.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember when you're bowling, USBC Open Championship, during practice, you're allowed to surface your bowling balls.
I didn't
Well,
know that until you told me that last week.
once you get into competition, then you can no longer do it, but you'll at least get a couple of shots there and be able to watch everybody else on your pair throw to get an idea of what the pattern's giving you. So make your
Mhm.
adjustments on the fly. And also, if you get to town a couple days early or a day early, go watch people bowl team.
Yeah, see what they're using.
I'm telling you, if you have a good eye for ball reaction, go
Mhm.
watch a couple teams that are actually bowling well. That's another key. Go watch your pair
Yeah, go watch
for a
the
little bit.
team bowling well. You don't want to watch a guy averaging 140.
Right. You're not going to get any good information, but
No.
watch teams that are working together and having some success and throwing some strings of strikes. You'll be able to see it on the screen. They put them up there. So just kind of move your head left and right, and they got the nice lookout area and just see where they're playing and see what the tendencies are of what they're doing, what is successful.
Right.
So, yeah,
What else we got?
got another question.
Okay.
It's actually directed towards me.
Good.
And you can answer this one too. It's like, I know you use the Sargisa grip to fix your problems with the ring finger. Is there a version of that grip that would do similar for people with issues with their middle finger? Now, Greg, if you're having issues with your middle finger, you want to get checked out by a pro shop. Chances are, if you're getting a little older, you may have to go a little shorter with your span. Maybe use a vacuum install in the finger there, and possibly use a little more reverse in that finger to
Yeah.
kind of alleviate strain. Typically, if you're having issues in the middle finger, it's because your flexibility has not been as good. My flexibility is still good here. I can kind of go like that. But if you're more like this
I can't.
when you bend your fingers,
Yeah. See.
yeah, so
Yeah.
you're going to have to use typically a little bit more reverse and shorter spans. I believe Walter Ray has shortened his span when he was doing grip changes a while back now. He shortened his span up to about an inch and went a lot more forward in the thumb and a lot more away on the fingers, because his flexibility in his hand was getting bad. It happens with age, happens to all of
Mhm.
us.
Yep.
So visit your pro shop, have them take a look. You may be as easy as just shortening up the span and going a little more forward to relax your hand in the ball. But it comes down to grip pressure. So manage that and you'll manage your finger pain. All right. Good question.
What,
We'll
you want to
take
tell
one
us?
more.
Oh,
Yeah.
That was a good question without
Derek,
telling us what it was.
do you recommend bowling the Bowler's Journal to get a preview of the pattern?
My group, we always do. Number one, it's we get there on Wednesday, we bowl Friday, Saturday. We get there Wednesday, we'll probably have dinner with all the guys, get together, say hello, hang out. And then Thursday is the first time we go to the lane so we can abuse each other on the lanes. But it gives you an idea of just the environment a little bit, especially at the stadium, because you're in the building, approaches, stuff like that. If it's in the same building, when you go to like South Point and you bowl in the main building, it's a little different. The
Yeah.
main center, it's not the
Not as
same.
It's not as open. It's darker.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not the
but you
same
know,
atmosphere.
I go bowler's journal sometimes just to see everybody hang out, but also to get a feel for what the approaches are like, mostly, you know. And then the pattern, it's they tell you it's a singles and doubles. So in that case, it should be pretty close. They use the same machine, I think.
Yeah.
And they oil
See,
them. So
testing the approaches on that, when the best thing that ever happened to my bowling was moving to Michigan, because during the winter here and all the snow and wetness that gets dragged into the bowling centers, the approaches go to, you're basically bowling on sticky, tacky, you can't slide. So I used to spend so much time trying to get accustomed to sliding and I would miss 3 shots a game sometimes because I'd either stick or slip a little. I could never get my footing underneath me. So one day or one season in particular, I just stopped sliding. I just said, you know what? I'm just going to plant from now on. I'm just going to go full Jess J. Rook, full Michael Hagen. I'm no longer sliding. I'm done.
and
It's been fantastic. I've never slipped on the approach. I don't stick anymore. I never have to worry about it.
that's
Center
right.
to center. I just walk up there and plant.
Yeah,
No problem.
he's not recommending that for anybody else. By the
I
way,
do
that's
not
not his
recommend that.
recommendation. So,
But it
the
became
bowlers-
it became an option. It became an option because when we bowl all these demos, like when we have these big demo days for Brunswick,
right?
and we have customers come in, and sometimes there'd be a little bit of a time down where we didn't have anybody come in for a minute. So I'd put up my fingers in a ball and thumb it up and just start bowling in my street shoes. And I was like, this is actually pretty easy. I can actually bowl pretty well, and I'm consistent shot to shot. Obviously, at the first, my knee was a little bit sore because all that pressure that goes into that. But, I adapted and overcame and told my body to strengthen up. And now, no issues. I
10
can
years
bowl.
from now, you'll be saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe I did that to my knee." So, anyway,
Didn't you just have your knee replaced?
no, I never did.
Oh.
That's why I should. I have to.
Then who are you to tell me?
I slide for that reason. Anyway, but yeah, Bowler's Journal is great to get acclimated.
Mm-hmm.
And you could spend some time there if you want to bowl a couple of squads and fiddle around. So
Yeah, I mean that's up to you. I mean, some people like to bowl in the center; they're going to bowl at. I don't. I bowled one squad of the Bowler's Journal in the 15 years I've ever been out there. So
right.
I want to save all my energy for the main tournament.
Yeah, all 9 games. It's really going to wear you out.
I want to give it my all. Even though I'm not even on the B team, I'm on the C team this year.
No, that's a good team you're on. It's just not the team. You're on a good team.
It's fine.
Yeah, if you make it out of there alive. How about any more questions?
No,
nobody
really.
else. Well, good.
No. Great show.
We have a lot.
We talked a lot today.
We did. Did we get a bunch of people watching today, or did they bail on us yet?
They started bailing on us. They only had 70 this time.
Oh,
but I think when we start talking about new product,
we'll get them back. Yeah, we'll see about next week's topic and everything. So we'll see.
Yeah. So we talked about topography at the National Bowling Stadium for the USBC Open Championship today.
Right.
Yeah. We touched on World Series of Bowling with the Cheetah Championship and lightweight cores versus their heavyweight predecessors and why the perception is not always the reality. Don't fall for the marketing. Always look at the numbers when you're shopping for lighter weight bowling balls.
Yep. And then ask around. You'll find people that have some comments on it. And, unfortunately, a lot of times when you look for reviews, you get the people that work for the company doing the reviews. That's something that we don't do.
No. I
I
mean, sure, I'm going to say every ball's great.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want that.
What does he know? You know what? That's fine. I'll tell you one thing, though. I don't edit hardly anything out. The only thing I really edit is if I really throw one way out the window and it's not even a comparable shot.
Right.
But like these last 2 videos, I probably edited 1 shot out of each. Everything else.
Good.
I don't edit.
So you're going to be sharp as a tack when we get to Reno.
Yeah, but I mean, my team's going to smoke your team.
Your team is good. I'm telling you,
I don't even know who's on my team, but I bet you we win.
You probably will.
How many pins you want?
As many as I need to win.
How much you want to bet for? As much as it'll take for you to squeeze.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
We got one more question before we
All right,
sign off here.
Go ahead.
All right, so why don't you use two-handed layouts on Throwbot?
Because Throwbot only has one hand.
Yeah. So Throwbot doesn't actually put fingers or thumb into the ball. It is a motor that spins it from the side. So the majority of bowlers still, maybe I'll change my ideas here in a little while, but the majority of bowlers still use two fingers and a thumb.
Yeah, but Throwbot is basically a two-hander. That's what he is.
One-hander, technically.
One-hander. Yeah,
he's
he's
technically a one-hander.
Two-hander with no fingers in it.
Yeah. So the numbers we give after drilling are accounting for two fingers and a thumb. So if we only drilled to two fingers, we'd have to get all new numbers for those cores, and we could do that. And we might do that in the future. But for now, the layouts are based off of two fingers and a thumb. So that's what we drilled into Throwbot.
That's it.
That's it. Good show.
I know. Good show. We'll see you guys hopefully next week.
Oh, good idea.
What?
My team versus your team. You got to eat a gumball if you lose.
And what do you do if I win?
I'll eat a gumball.
Yeah, not one of these though. These are some.
Yeah, I'll eat one of those gumballs.
I'm gonna mail it to you. Yeah, $25 to ship you a gumball. That was perfect.
Oh my
hey, Rob,
gosh!
Don't quit your day job.
If everybody in the chat could possibly go buy one extra Radical ball this year, so we can afford the shipping to get the gumball to me, I would very much appreciate that. All right, y'all.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Nick, thanks again for a great show.
Same channel, and, same time.
Get on the web, get on our Facebook pages, and give us some more topics, and we'll put them in if we can down the road.
Rob already said he's paying shipping, no problem.
See you guys.
Or just bring it to Reno. Just put it in your carry-on. There you go. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys next week.
See you. Bye.